All right, folks. Well, we are here with our first Internet of Things database interview for the company named ThingStudio. We've got Mark Karliner. I might have butchered that just slightly, but
I
he
think
said it's
it's Mike.
okay.
It's actually Mike.
I said Mark. I was so focused on getting your last name right
It's fine.
that I butchered your first name. Awesome. So we're going to go through just a couple questions that we've already posted on the database, your responses, but just give you a chance to maybe go a little deeper, help the audience understand what you do, and at the end, give you a chance to just reach out to the audience and whatever it is you may need. This is all about giving back and just helping the community. I'm really passionate about that. So if there's anything you need from them, they've been very gracious to me. So I would imagine they'd be very gracious to you as well.
Great.
All right. So the first question, how long has your offering been around? Kind of tell us a little story about that.
Um, the genesis of this actually goes back nearly 25 years.
Ooh.
And that is way back in the 90s. There was another revolution going on, and that was GUIs coming in. In fact, people don't remember now, but the early GUIs were the machines that had them were not Windows machines. Windows for a long time just sort of floundered until about Windows 3.
Mm-hmm.
Windows 1 and 2 were kind of non-events. But X Windows on workstations was a big deal. And I was working for a workstation company, but there were no things to show it off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built a tool which was called Alex at the time, which was to create GUI interfaces from green screen applications.
Interesting.
And sorry about this, hold on.
No, it's okay.
So it's just my answering machine. And the thing about that was it was actually quite successful. We ran about 7 years, and in fact, Lotus 123, if anybody remembers that,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
actually written in Alex.
Really?
Yeah, they
Oh,
never got a native one running. And we wrote it for them. So so that was the genesis. So I got a bit of a legacy of making UI tools for various things.
interesting.
And for years, I've been sort of thinking about Alex Mark II, and this has been noodling about, and then I got into Internet of Things. And sort of about this time last year, I started to think about how to put this stuff together and started to do some experiments. And they were based on a technology called Meteor,
Mm-hmm.
which a number of folks know about.
Yeah.
And so then in January, I went to the Meteor Group in London and sort of demoed a cobbled together demo, which generated a lot of interest. And out of that, there was insufficient interest that I thought, right, well, we're going to make a project. So that's when ThingStudio started, beginning of this year. And it was just like one of those things where a big light goes on, because it wasn't more than 6 weeks before we had the whole thing actually running in its first invocation.
Oh, wow, that's fast.
Now that's Meteor for you as well. Big pitch for
So,
me.
so for the audience who may not be familiar with Meteor, can you give maybe 30 seconds of over?
Yeah. So Meteor is a full stack JavaScript environment.
Mhm.
Unlike something like Angular, it actually is both server and client components. And the sort of interesting, remarkable thing about it that gives you, it's developed a lot over the last few years I've used it, is that you have a central database, which is usually Mongo, though different things are coming.
Mhm.
And each client has a partial copy of that database. So writing collaborative tools, basically from the view of the programmer, is writing records to the database. And Meteor syncs everything behind the scenes for you.
Interesting.
And that's really great, and it works really well for database-driven applications, which are collaborative.
Which IoT might have
It's
something
not.
to do with data, right? Just a little.
It's got to do with data, but it's not about collaboration through a database.
Yeah.
So what ThingStudio does is it bolts first MQTT and now HTTP on the side and injects them into the Meteor world. So
Interesting.
we get all the great stuff you get out of Meteor, plus then we've integrated that into IoT protocols, and so we're rolling out a series of different protocols because we got the patent now.
Oh, you're patented. That's pretty
No,
cool.
sorry, the patent.
Ah, that's good stuff. So you say here you're currently labeled in alpha. Next quarter, I'm assuming. What's your quarter? So what is that?
Well, end of the year.
End of year. Okay, so we're talking
This year.
calendar year.
Yeah, I mean, it's people are making things already, and I think I'm going to take a leaf out of the Meteor book, and we're just going to remove the labels. I mean, Meteor and lots of other stuff just went through point releases until they hit 1.0, and that was sometimes those 2-3 years, and I think that's probably something about us. It's, you know, the whole IoT thing is alpha, IoT alpha, big label.
Yeah, I mean, when I started this database, it was, I mean, just finding, I've got 160 some odd entries in it, and I haven't even scratched the surface. I mean, there's so many different things all over the place. It's a beast.
It's a beast. Separating out any kind of reality from a quick marketing coat of paint over something that exists already or is really difficult.
Yeah,
And
that's
I mean, even more difficult is to find anybody who's got any genuine projects. Plenty of initiatives, but the big thing is people making stuff.
you make me kind of sit up when you said that. That's very true. I've run into talking and looking at a bunch of these things, and then you say, okay, well, where is it? And well, it's on our website. You're like, all right, but where is it deployed? Well, we have it deployed on our production and test servers. I'm like, well, that's not really what the answer I was looking for. Well, interesting. So what problem does it solve? You kind of already touched on this, but let's get more specific.
The problem is that GUIs are hard.
Yep.
And unless you've actually tried to sit down and write a GUI, you don't really appreciate how hard it is. The first getting a button up is just fine, and everybody says that's great. You may use WYSIWYG or whatever. But actually making a production-ready GUI tool is a hard problem. And the hypothesis is that if we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of different devices, if not in the home, certainly in the workplace, that equates to a number of apps, right? And also what you really need to do is be able to mix and match talking to different devices and services.
Yeah.
So it's not just one app, one device, because that's actually not what you want. That's kind of daft. That's just a remote control problem from the 90s writ large. So that's the problem we set out to solve with ThingStudio.
Interesting. Yeah, you know, so as my role, I'm an integration program manager for a large company, and we run into that all the time. There's plenty of folks who can integrate their own systems, but you add something different to it and you get data conflicts. The UI maybe just isn't ready for taking in that much data. It's not flexible. It takes a lot of time. So it's interesting to see that, because really what I've seen, and we do a lot of selling to customers around integration programs, is if the UI isn't pretty, if it's not functional, it doesn't matter how good the back end is. That's the first thing the average user sees.
Sure. So, I mean, if you can bear with me, I'll show you a quick example of how this goes together, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's just... so I'm on my other screen, or is it on your screen?
Oh, look at you. You're nifty. I'm a Skype newbie, so...
You got it? Or which one is it on?
I've got it. No, this is perfect. It's showing me your...
I've forgotten which screen I'm doing it on. I've got three screens here.
My apps is what I see.
Right, okay, so let's just have a look at the example app here. Fundamentally, you've got there's three concepts you've got to understand, really. A connection, a feed, and a template. So connections in this regard are connections to services or devices.
Yep, and there's that message queue right there.
Right, so there's a message queue. In the new shiny one, my connections are MQTT and HTTP. I don't have one in there, but you get the idea. And actually, I'll go and get my local development thing. So basically, you can define yourself connections outgoing, and then you multiplex these onto the idea of a feed. So, for example, here's my 3 feeds for London weather.
So real quick, it's almost building an API right there. I see subscribe.
That's right. So you go there. Yeah, you go there, and then you can tell it how you want it to process incoming messages. So in this case, I'm keeping a journal of 50 messages. Sorry, I'm not keeping a journal. I'm doing calculations on running average over 50,000. Right? So what you can do is in fact, all the feed stuff is actually coming in on the same subscription, but I want to burst it out because I want to do different things to different properties in the same message, right? So once I've defined those, I can then go to a template, and here's the template that consumes those.
Yeah.
And it's just HTML.
Right there.
Right there. And, well, there's 6 lines, but 4 of them are in fact, sorry, 7 lines, but 4 of them are in fact just divs. But if you see that, that's one of our widgets. And then that's what you get.
And it looks
and you
like
can tell that it's a cold
Bootstrap too.
That's an interesting point. What we've done is, this is the IDE side of it. Right? So if we go in, that's the viewer, and the viewer is coming along. So that's what you have on your phone, right? This isn't Bootstrap. We've made all our own widgets. Although, nice thing is we've also got a widget construction set, so other people can make widgets.
Interesting.
So the point about this being that we don't expect to be able to hit every requirement that everybody's got.
No, but you made it open enough that they can.
Exactly. So you can see, if you look here, because I've got system access, there is one of my widgets, which is 16 lines of SVG and 26 lines of JavaScript.
So tell me about oven temperature. How did you do that?
Which bit, sorry?
It said oven temperature.
Yeah, well, this is just an example invocation of it.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if I tried to drill a hole in my oven to...
well, actually, it's funny you should say that, because here on the desk is the K-type thermocouple, which is going in our oven, because... so, yeah, lead it underneath the door.
I tend to burn food, so that might be a good thing.
I'm a keen cook, so I get a bit precious about this.
Ah.
Right, so, as I say, connections, feeds, templates builds those things up. Then you can theme it with CSS if you want, and then you bundle that all into an app. And so an app is just a database query, so we can house thousands and thousands of apps and project them outwards.
Interesting.
So that's the fundamental concepts, really. So I'm just remembering this machine. Another one here.
So we've kind of touched on a lot of the different questions. You know, how would someone use it? But who are you targeting? Like, who would you initially see taking this? I've kind of got my ideas. And then what is your ultimate end user?
Right. So we kind of class people into 3 categories.
Okay.
Right. And in fact, reality has intruded. So we're kind of doing this. Fundamentally, we're interested in enterprise and the old-fashioned SCADA market. The thing that you can see about this stuff is that you've got something quick. It's relatively uncompromising about ease of use initially, because in fact we're about making production stuff, right? And you can see how we can take data from a bunch of sources, make huge displays, make mobile displays, anything in between.
Well, I really like the fact that you had the running analytics log tracking it, because so I work in the ICS BAS space, the industrial control building automation space, and one of the problems is a lot of the older systems, they don't have the horsepower to do this because they'll crash.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is, again, this is underlying power of Meteor. Meteor does the live update stuff, right? So actually, I'm developing here. I mean, I'll probably mess it up here, but if I put in just some characters here and go to that, I know I have messed it up. There's a bug in that. But, come on. There you go. You see, I've edited it and it's changed.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fast.
And there's live data going into it. No, it would have been a bit faster if this stupid bug keeps on catching me. But anyway, we fixed that one in the release coming out. But so you can actually see live data. In fact, also the real way to use it is you have a mobile device, or you have your target device in your hand or in your user's hand, and you can change the UI as somebody's watching it, and they've got live data going in. Right? So it's real powerful for doing that kind of stuff. But going back to the segmentation, is we think the reality is that the first and most disruptive application of IoT is in more traditional spaces, right? So there's a lot of stuff to be supplanted and also just extended. It's to grow the SCADA market as well as maybe move into the traditional systems, because when it's that much cheaper, I mean, my favorite, I think you can still see my video, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, you're in the bottom right-hand corner.
Right. So my,
I don't know if I click on
one of my
There
favorite
we go.
choices, right? That being an ESP8266, right? And when you can put a 32-bit processor into something for a base BOM cost of what, about $2.50,
Yeah.
that just changes reality in a major way. So, so as I say, enterprise and regular industrial control. Then there's also the fact that it's tough to make apps for your nice new Kickstarter project or what smaller manufacturers.
It's extremely
Stuff.
tough to make apps.
Right, and the thing is, so you get all your money, you make your casings, you make all the electronics, you have the boards go back 5 times, right, and then you've got to make a mobile app, right? So and you've got to get it through the app stores,
and it's got to be pretty.
And it's got to be pretty. So there's a case for that, and then there's the thing that's sort of powering this in some ways, which is the makers and the hackers and everybody, and they're welcome to use it for as much as they want, free, because we really don't see that as a huge money-making market. We're not really chasing an educational market or something like that. But the advanced hacker will be, I think, hopefully very pleased with that.
Yeah. Good. So I'm going to continue down here. So we've kind of covered how it's deployed. We talked about, so someone's going to log in. So I'm going to click back on your website here, have that on top. So someone's going to create a profile. They're going to sign in. And then right off the bat, they can watch your video tutorials, read the documentation, and just start building their own apps.
That's it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then if they wanted to go and work with you to create new connections, or they had some ideas, would they? How would they go about doing that?
That's a very interesting point. So this is not available. Hold on. Let me just see. That's because I just deployed something.
No worries. It's always fun playing with production systems.
Well, no, this is my local dev. So we're continuing to disaggregate the whole thing. So there's the core system, and then there's more bits plugging in. So the point about connections, we're now working more with the platform manufacturers, looking at that. And if I go back to the idea of the feed, right here, right, what I showed you was feed processing.
Yep.
Right, but this in the current version is hard-coded. There's a few different kinds of way you can process your stuff as it goes in and comes out. Next release, which we're just going into beta, or just got some test users on, that makes that plug-in. And so everybody can write their own custom feed processing, which means by the time we put in the raw WebSocket and the HTTP transports, basically you can take pretty much any web or internet connection and write a bit of glue code that will change the stuff into the JSON that we need going in and coming out. And so, in fact, we have a very talented guy who's working with us, who's one of our best users, close to me here in London. So he's creating the OctaBlue libraries to be able to talk to Citrix's OctaBlue, but he's doing it on his own.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Huh.
So that's the interesting thing. We don't expect everybody to do that, but the possibility of a systems integrator being able to take what we got and completely be able to munge it around so that they can connect funny stuff up, that sounds pretty good.
Well, that's kind of the...
And without bloating the core of the system, because all that stuff is plug-in. You only get that in on an app-by-app basis.
Yeah.
So actually, as they come up, this one's come up. I'll just show you a quick look. So this is my dev system. Here's my HTTP test system. The feeds here. Now, you can see that I can actually, the request processors are something I can choose. So I've just got two. I've got a dynamic one here. And the interesting thing being that...
So you add a lot of speed to the end user, to the developer, because a lot of this is just click and it goes and is already set.
Oh, there we go. So the interesting thing is here, you see, I've just declared that feed processor it doesn't do much. But for example, the OctaBlue one injects the user's credentials on every request,
Huh.
right? And then if you're using, say, Bluemix, in order to use their MQTT, you have to use the exact client ID they specify. So we're going to put, so it allows you to dig down and actually do something. So, in its first invocation, you get the really very attractive, couple of lines of code to make something really quite nice. So sorry, that's the template for the region.
Nice.
But yeah, but then we're keen to make sure that the people who need to do this for proper production, we don't just say, all right, well, sorry, you have to just go and abandon this and go and start making code. You can keep going all the way down and do what you need. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So you sent me a little graphic here, and I have to apologize. I am not a Skype master like you, where I can share screens and do that. I can architect out a system like no one else, but trying to share a screen, that's the simple IT tasks that are difficult for me. But folks, it's on the actual database, on the journal entry,
Yeah.
and if you know the graphic I'm talking about, it's gray and lays out the ThingStudio architecture.
Oh, well, somewhat. Actually, that's a system architect. That's a test system architecture from our friend Lawrence, who's making industrial control. So what he's looking at is interfacing with LoRa networks. So that's a very interesting thing. And so we're going to be looking at how we're going to support them.
Aha, I figured it out, I think. I think I am sharing my other screen here.
Yeah, you have.
All right. So, folks, let's see if I can bring this over here. And
no, I was seeing that. You just taking it away.
Here, we got it now. You got it?
Yeah, if you can zoom in,
right.
you can zoom in a bit.
Because
cool.
I'm recording on this screen, so I want people to be able to see it here.
Cool.
All right.
So you can argue about how the layers go, but fundamentally, Meteor sits on Mongo, which is where we store all the app data, the application, the stuff that defines the application. We use MQTT or HTTP to talk to other stuff. And the other thing that we do is that it's a cloud IDE. It is not a cloud data service. You provide your own infrastructure, whether it's an HTTP server or whether it's MQTT brokers. So we never touch.
No, that's actually really good.
And end users data.
Dealing with SCADA systems, that would be one of their first pushbacks. Is you're putting my data in the cloud, and you're not.
All we do is we are an application server.
Yep.
Everything else is down to either you bought in, PaaS or in-house stuff. And we believe that's very important, because the thing is that the best way to secure data is if we don't have it. And so the data in ThingStudio goes in and out of a private WebSocket. Our side of things just can't see it. We've no idea what is going on. And it works perfectly well in firewalls, in private networks, in everything else like that. So long as you can go out to pull down the app, you're okay.
Yeah, interesting. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here. Thanks.
Cool.
And we're back up, and I'm going to move this back over. I'm going to be a Skype master by the time this call's done.
You'll be a Skype master by the time you've done all your interviews, certainly.
Yeah, I've got a lot more to do. So we've kind of seen this. We've seen that there's a forum, that there's a wiki, but how is your offering supported?
We support it through those things, but we're very happy to do one-to-one. This is very much building it one developer at a time, and it's about getting the community to tell us what's wrong. Yeah. Compliments are nice, but bugs are much nicer.
That's how I feel. I feel, don't tell me what's good, tell me what's not good so we can make it better.
Exactly right. So that's what we're doing. We're listening, and we're working with people to do it, and it's moving along.
So you've kind of went through the future, but what's the future?
We got a pretty clear roadmap, at least for the next few months, well into next year. One thing is offline working, so that you only need to pull down the apps when you're updating. So you can work in completely isolated mode. Another thing is more transports, WebSockets, possibly Bluetooth. Another thing is projecting this as a native app. One of the reasons for doing that is then through Cordova, we can access things like Bluetooth and talk with stuff that isn't accessible to the browser level of stuff. And then we're sort of looking at end user management and the provisioning stuff, because that's, again, most people aren't there. They're simply not there. But if you've got thousands of installations, either thousands of devices or thousands of people, provisioning and managing those kind of things at scale is a big deal. And we feel that most people aren't even thinking about that, let alone doing something about it.
You know, that's something that's a challenge that I see all the time in my engagements with customers, is that their fear is, okay, how am I going to say that this maintenance guy needs this access, this mechanic needs this access, oh, this guy just left, he doesn't need access anymore. It becomes pure craziness. And
yep, absolutely. And I mean, the thing that we're looking at is integrating with Auth and
so OAuth?
Possibly, but there's also some proprietary options. So we're looking at, again, extending this so that we can reach out and use some of the proprietary offerings, but OAuth or whatever, LDAP even, so that
as long as you don't say Kerberos.
Yeah, well, whatever, whatever folks want to knit into it, because they may have legacy stuff with thousands of users, and you just need to do it. Yeah. But absolutely, the thing is managing that. And then we'll see whether it makes sense to make a sort of independent thing. But mostly, you see, we're about interoperability. I see a lot of monolithic solutions out there. Use us, and that solves the whole problem. That's not what we say. We've got a very clear mandate. It's building user interface apps, and therefore the rest of the thing is we have to interoperate with everything else in sight. And that's what we're aiming to do.
So, before we close out, I just want to dig a little deeper into one thing that's kind of a passion and a vision of mine. So this is a little selfish taking your time here, but you say Bluetooth, and I've had this vision for a while that folks are going to walk up with a UI, with a mobile device, to a piece of equipment, and it's going to be able to tell where that piece of equipment is and pull data from that equipment into the UI. Is that kind of what you're thinking with Bluetooth? Like locationing and understanding where folks are?
I'm very passionate about local positioning, but not through Bluetooth. There is a new generation of spread spectrum technologies that are coming up. There's one on Kickstarter called POSIX. Yeah, not POSIX as in Unix, but POSIX as in POSYX, I think.
I'm going to have to look that up.
And they're giving positioning within hundreds of meters to an accuracy of about 10 centimeters.
Oh, really?
They're not the only one, but but they are on Kickstarter, and so plug for them, because I think these guys are doing something incredibly important. Yeah. In that there's just so many applications, both commercial and industrial, you got for that kind of thing, that it's just untrue. So there's some very interesting stuff. I mean, before I got into the ThingStudio thing, I was looking at local positioning, and I got as far as realizing that the spread spectrum technologies were the way to do it. Because it's an ultra-wideband technology, right, on the ISM bands, so you don't need a license for it. So the ultra-wideband technologies give you incredible punch, so that these things go quite a long way. Yeah. But also you get this speed bandwidth trade-off. So by using ultra-wideband, you get a very high temporal resolution, and that allows you to make these. It's a time-of-flight measurement system. That's what it is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
some other guys, but these guys as well.
Huh. So folks who are watching this, Mike has been more than gracious. He's been battling a cold. He's been fighting this for you guys to give you some overview of ThingStudio here. And I want to give Mike a chance to ask you for what he needs, for what could help him. And I know all of you are very gracious with your time. So, Mike, what can the community do to help you?
Just use it. give us and tell us what's wrong with it, or use us and tell us what's right with it. But that'd be lovely. But just try it out and give some feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, give me a second. I'm going to stop the recording real quick. And thank you, everyone, for watching.